Hello and welcome along to the VMTV Rugby Pod, our last one before the big man comes in Santa. Al, great to have you in studio. That's a hat-trick, I think. What is the big man in red going to deliver for you this year?
I'm not sure, Stuart. A bag of coal, maybe? I don't know. Maybe a surprise.
You deserve a surprise, Al, after all your work.
Who's going to buy me anything or give me any presents? Who knows?
Well, I'll probably not buy you, but I'll show you my friendship.
That's fine.
We'll review the Champions Cup and look ahead to 2026. Results last weekend. Leinster winning in a pretty good second half against Leicester because they were certainly up for it. Ulster losing in Cardiff. Munster winning in a good crowd at Porky Queeve. And then Connacht smashing the Black Lion. Did you enjoy it, to say the obvious? And overall, a pretty good day for the provinces?
Yeah, I think the Ulster one was very disappointing for them. I think really good opportunity. Cardiff have been going very well in the URC, so it was a tricky one, and we said that last week. Richie Murphy, overhauled his team selection and changed it up, and they're done in the end by a penalty, really. But Cardiff were back 26-all at that point, so from the lead they had, it was a disappointing loss. But the Munster game was it was a tough watch, and that's putting it mildly. I think they finished very strongly, and most important thing is they got the 5 points. And for Leinster on Friday night against Leicester, I think it was very scrappy at times. But I think the narrative with Leinster obviously is an expectation there that they should be winning really dominantly, and I think there was probably a negative feel after it, probably in the media or online. But I think it's a good win over in Leicester. It's a very good win, and given that they had to come from behind, it wasn't perfect. So Leinster are still a bit off, and I think they definitely need a bit more cohesion and sort their attack out, get a bit more fluidity in that. But I think it's a good win when you go away from home like that and you get the win. Certainly lots to work on, and it's hard to judge the Connacht game really. It's job done really. They were very, very dominant against the Black Line, and a confidence boosting kind of win in the sense that they're not under huge pressure and they're able to play good rugby and throw the ball around a little bit. But I think overall when you get 3 wins out of 4, it's a good return. But I thought Ulster mismanaged the last 15-20 minutes of that game when they were in a commanding position on the scoreboard.
We'll stick to Leinster, and I think we pretty much frame it every week. We're very harsh on them, but they were down at half time. Prendergast comes on for the last 25 minutes or just shy of that. They have 7 or 8 internationals off the bench. Leicester don't. They have guys in the Championship playing at Nottingham and so on, but they were pretty courageous and they turned it round, and you have to give them credit for that. And yes, maybe by this stage we expect them to be clicking a lot more.
You expect a bonus point win, don't you? You kind of think that's what we've seen the last few years, but it's not the end of the world when you go over and you win by 8 points, 23-15, and you come up against a very intense opponent and who are throwing everything at it. They defended really strongly against Leinster. They shut them down. They forced some mistakes. I think they frustrated Leinster. They caused them a few issues at set piece. And then they get 2 breakaway tries, don't they? Well, the first one is ball goes on the ground and it's hacked upfield. Brilliant finish. The second one's a kick through as well. So they didn't really have any sustained pressure on Leinster. But we analyse Leinster, and that's just the high standards that we've seen from in the last number of years now, that there's an expectation that they should be clicking and playing brilliant rugby, and they're the favourites every time. When the favourites don't play as well, you've got to take that. So look, it was far from perfect, and certainly I think they would review it and be a bit frustrated with certain parts of the game. But overall, I think it's still a good away win in Europe, and Leicester kind of gave it everything. They put their best foot forward against Leinster. They sensed an opportunity, and for a long period of that game, they were in a really good position. So, not perfect, I think, and Leicester missing a few players. Ball was kicked a lot, 33 times by Leicester, 34 times by Leinster. we're seeing a bit of a common trend throughout all these games now, that kicking is so much. And we spoke about it last week with Ross Byrne talking about the box kicks and Mike Prendergast, but there's just so much, a lot of kicking in the game now, and so it was a scrappy kind of a game, but I thought Leinster finished very strongly and were quite commanding in the end, and you have to be not ecstatic with the performance, but happy to get the result, get in and out of there.
Do you think the kicking trend, because the stats are saying they win matches, it's going to go all the way through to 2027 World Cup?
Well, unless they change something up, but it's becoming... they brought in a law there a couple of years ago about the 5 seconds at the base of the ruck, but it's just... It's so monotonous now in the game, and the game is in a tricky place now, because...
I've heard a few people say that.
Yeah, and it's not a...
And what's your biggest bear bug with it?
It's a spectacle that's at times it's hard to watch, because... And I get it, if I'm a player there, or if I'm a coach of a team, I'm trying to find the simplest ways of getting down the field, not making mistakes in your own half, all that. So that's the reality. When we brought in the 50-22 a few years ago, the idea was to maybe reward brilliant kicks from inside your own half, and they bounce into inside the 22, and you get rewarded with the line out. Some at the time are arguing, it's going to get more kicking, it's going to encourage more kicking. But I think the idea was to try and keep a couple of more players in the backfield that, there might be a bit of space on the edge, and it might actually attract more attractive rugby and people trying to find the edges. And we did see a period of that. You even look at the Irish team, the way they would have held on to possession a lot in their own half of the field and tried to find those edges and those soft kind of corners that you can get around and get line breaks, and even get to a position where wingers can kind of punt up or grubber ball up along the field if there's space. And it was so you see just a lot of rucks being slowed down now, and without hesitation, without even someone having a look and seeing, God, it's on here, maybe if we actually are brave, put it through the hands, it's scrum halves just tapping it back in. They're kind of taking... I suppose the refs are saying use it, but sometimes it's 5-6 seconds, and even the 5 seconds when you it's just, there's people making the caterpillar longer. I saw a really good piece from Owen Dial, the former referee, during the week, and the Irish Times about players shouldn't be allowed join at after the ball has been won and it's back on someone's side to lengthen these caterpillars. And I kind of agreed with it, and it kind of struck a chord with me that we're seeing a lot of just so much kicking, so much box kicking. Then you get a situation that we've spoken about with no escorts or no runway, nobody in the runway, and you're seeing, it's a great skill, 2 players go in the air, but we're seeing knock on, scrum down, and then reset and reset and reset, and so there's a few areas, and particularly slow, that situation, the back of the breakdowns. But World Rugby did try and change it, and they brought in the 5 second law change, and but it just seems to be the go-to thing now for people in their own half. Even sometimes in the attacking half, we're seeing straight to box kick every time. So it's something that the coaches and the international coaches and the unions have to look at, because if you're encouraging a kicking game and the stats show that you are getting returns off it, well, teams are going to keep doing that, but it's not easy on the eye.
As a player, if we take for Irish example with Casey and Gibson Park, they're so probably ingrained into kicking now, but I'd say a bit of them in the back of their heads like, can we not just move this thing and go?
Yeah, I know there's a flip side to that. At times, particularly if you're winning a game and you're controlling it, a brilliant box kick and your winger running up and winning it in the air, and you getting a ruck in the half and then putting it through the hands, and the fly half kicking it into the opposite corner, and everyone's running. You've got to run back as defenders and now get set for a line out maybe, and you've suddenly moved from your own defending zone, your own half, way deep in the opposition half. It's a great return, isn't it? So I don't know what the solution is, and look, you can't just go. I'm not suggesting that you kind of go, oh, you have to eliminate box kicks now. That's not going to happen. But we need to speed up these rucks a little bit more. So I would even say bring it down to a 3-second scenario. If the ball is clear and when the referee, you have a situation then that you have to, the referee has to see, right, that ball is clearly kind of in a position now to play it. Not stuck in the ruck and a scrum half trying to bring it back. But like there was a time when I played that if a scrum half touched the ball, it's out. Now you see scrum halves nearly lifting it, bringing it back, placing it inside the hindmost foot by someone who's joined and made this into a big long caterpillar ruck. There's no chance of anyone even blocking down that box kick anymore. And they've lots of time to get set. They've lots of time to be precise with the kick. It probably might be even a better scenario if it was 3 seconds that. So if you want to just kick, just thump it down the field rather than having this precise box kick. Make sure your winger is set, make sure everyone. Like, I was actually thinking about this, that if a scrum half had to just get the ball and literally lash it rather than this precise box kick, would that then encourage a full back or a winger to say, we've now received the ball really quickly, they're not as set as they were.
They're a bit fractured.
A little bit fractured. I'm going to have a crack here and I'm going to try and run back and I'm going to make a pass to my winger and we're going to try and get our support back quickly, and would it encourage more? Because the reality is when that box kick is, if it's won by the defending team, that's quite a slow ruck. That's usually kind of settle it down, get set, get the defenders back, even set up one pod infield, and then we're back to a box kick again. So we're seeing a trend of box kick, knock on, scrum, reset, box kick, you know what I mean? Whereas, you know, the free flowing, you think back to someone like Christian Cullen, if he got a ball in the back field, you know, I know I'm going way back here, but like his first instinct is run. Now a lot of the players are safety. So that's where the game needs to be looked at a little bit. And look, we're all kind of stakeholders, and the main stakeholders are the teams and the coaches and the unions, you know. But it's a tough spectacle at times now where you see a huge amount of this, you know, a lot of choreographed, organised kicking. So you can't eliminate kicking, and it's not about kick the ball 30 times. It doesn't matter. I've been at matches where teams have kicked it mid-30s and they've been great games. You've kind of went, oh God. But now it's very, very organised. It's practiced. It's structured. They do it in training. Winger set, open side, the side of the ruck, midfield, everyone up. So even when they win it in the backfield, if it's a little bit deeper and the kick wasn't on the money and someone gets tackled and there's a chance maybe, there is no chance now to move it because there's just a wall of players all organised and set. So maybe if we speed up the ruck a little bit, put a bit more emphasis on that we will get a bit of kamikaze kicking where, right, we're getting out of our own 22, but we're either going to kick it straight out to touch or we're going to lash it down the field if we're outside the 22. It mightn't be the prettiest kick, but I'm going for a bit of distance. And then a winger or full back might say, right, this is a little bit fractured here, I'm going to run rather than kick back. I don't have the perfect solution, but you know, it might. Yeah. It all stems from this organised, slow rucks.
Placing World Rugby Committee for you all.
But at the end of the day, if you're winning, you know, 20 points to 12 against a team, and there's 15, 20 minutes, or you're trying to control the tempo of the game, and if I'm playing there, like I'm like, oh, safety first, like of course, but we have to try and look at ways of encouraging a bit of intuition, a bit of individual brilliance. You know, a little bit more unstructured stuff.
You talked about the Munster game earlier. A win's a win and a good one at that against Gloucester, but it was a hard watch at times. Clayton McMillan against Bath was pretty damning of his assessment. But to be fair to the team and the squad and in the front row with a great AIL story coming through at the age of 30, it's a big box ticks for Munster heading into these interpros.
It is, yeah. I think a bit of a reality check in the last couple of weeks of where Munster are at. I think the mitigation that's certainly there is, in fairness, Clayton McMillan has changed his team nearly every week, and it hasn't been like 2 or 3 changes. It's been 7, 8, 9, 10 changes, and they've lacked a little bit of cutting edge and flow in their attack game. They had 10 entries in the 22 last week and they didn't come away with anything from them. So it was frustrating. You play against a team. It's like Leicester against Leinster. There's emotion there. And sometimes the emotion of a group of guys coming over to Cork here in a big arena. They're not first choice players. 15 changes in the team. We want to go out and point proof, and they can make it messy at times. And Gloucester did that, and credits them for that. It was 12-3 with 12 minutes to go in the game. Munster botched a lot of chances, and I think that's probably the most frustrating part from them. And it was very poor. It was poor stuff. A lot of knock-ons, a lot of forced offloads, a lot of poor decisions when they were in good places, not clinical enough. And when you're playing against a team like that who bring loads of emotion, I think the simplest way of getting a good performance is doing the simple things really precise and well, i.e. set piece, breakdown, simple passing, running hard, wearing the opposition. And it can take time. And look, in the end, they get a positive return. They scored 5 tries. But yeah, it was flat at times, and it was frustrating. But again, like, you want to try and get maximum points there, and they got the 5 points, and it was really important because I think, they go to Toulon next in Europe, and then they cast at home. Toulon is going to be very, very difficult. So winning against Casts at home is probably more achievable. Of course, they won in Toulon 2 years ago, and they had a brilliant win there. And they won't be thinking like we're going to not going to win it. But it's a tricky period to manoeuvre with the interpros and stuff like that in Europe. So it wasn't a great performance, but a good 5 points in the end, I think, which was probably the most important thing. And if you look at the results, I think they had 5 really good results against in the URC before the Stormers game. Not 5 good performances. I think the standout performance was they were outstanding against Leinster. The intensity.
That's the best they've been for a while.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I think I know they didn't have a huge amount of possession in the game, but they were clinical. There was an edge to them. They were accurate. They were ferocious in defence. And look, it's very difficult to get to that level. I think it was a real statement win, but I think Connacht, they won 17-15. It wasn't brilliant. And then the Stormers, first half was brilliant. They were brilliant against the Stormers. Their attack, their ambition, the way they played, the tempo to their game was brilliant. So they've had sporadic moments, really good moments this year. I think the key for Munster now is to try and be consistent in those moments and in their performances. And look, I know it's difficult. You build cohesion with selection and trying to keep a core group together, but you have to give guys games as well, and you lose a little bit of that, and I think we've seen that in the last few weeks. Well, they've lost it. The Bath performance was incredibly poor in the first 20 minutes.
Beaten up. Really,
really sloppy, and I think there was moments there where they were physically out-muscled and stuff. I like, as I said, Clayton McMillan has been very honest in that. So, they still have plenty of work to do, and away to the Ospreys this week, who've been poor in the league. They've had 2 good wins in the Challenge Cup. They're 13th in the URC, but they love nothing more than Munster coming over this weekend. We saw the response they had against Connacht a few weeks ago. They're 21-0 down the Challenge Cup. The way they came back so strongly in that second half and end up winning the game. So, yeah, they'll love the fact that Munster are coming, and it'll be a big scalp for them. So it's a tricky one now this weekend because, again, there's going to be some rotation, and they've got to bring a real attitude with them over there at the weekend.
And then the Challenge Cup, you briefly mentioned Ulster there, 2 tries up in Cardiff, and they've started the season very promising under Richie Murphy, which has been great. And Mark Sexton's got rave reviews. He had to change it up with these block of fixtures coming up. Jake Flannery played 10, was good. A lot of boys, James Hume was good in the centre, but last 20 just crumbled, and Callum Sheeny knocked over last play of the game.
Yeah, it was they were 26-12 up, and
It finished 29-26.
Discipline was poor, the control was poor in the end. I think they definitely took the foot off the pedal. And look, we mentioned last week about this being a challenge, and they've had a really, really good start to the season. They won 4 out of 5 games. The Edinburgh game was postponed. They're playing some brilliant rugby. Their attack looks really, really on the money. And the change that came in, it was obviously a different team, but there was still a lot of good players out in that field. And again, I just thought at 26-12, that's a time to maybe be boring. Do the stuff that I'm talking about a few minutes ago. Get organised, be sharp, keep your discipline, don't give away soft penalties. Cardiff were always going to try and surge back at them, and I think they were just poor. Some of their decision making was really poor in their discipline. And then when you're back to full strength and you get nudged off a scrum like that at the end, it's a real kind of killer punch for them. I know at that point it's 26 all.
And they were down to 14.
Yeah.
But
and would they just take that and then, it's
But
it's
that
a
last
tough
scrum
fight
was
to lose.
damning.
It is. It's
and
kind of a damning.
Augustus and Bell were playing.
Yeah, it's
That could happen though, can't it?
It can. It's probably switch off, but it's a learning curve for them, and it's a game they let behind them. But they got 2 points out of it as well, so they're still in a good position after very dominant win against Racing. They had 5. They've now 7 points. They play Cheetahs next in the Challenge Cup
And Stad
at home. So the Cheetahs game I think is in Amsterdam. So I think they're 2 kind of very winnable games for them. And if they get themselves in a strong position here, round 16, quarterfinals, Challenge Cup, they could, a little bit of luck, they could be a team that could really contend for this and have a go for it. And it'd be brilliant to try and get some sort of silverware there and build on this. But look,
it's left us for so long, Al.
Yeah, but look, I think they've been so inconsistent, Stuart. I think.
Tell me about it.
And that's the kind of the frustrating thing about the weekend. They had that game won, and you never have a game won, but it looked like they had it won, and I think they mismanaged the game in the last 10-15 minutes.
And the team in green, I know the Black Line scoring off the kick-off just sums it all up for them. Richard Cockrell, fortunately, he's now been relieved of his duties with Georgia and the Black Line, technically. But
it's funny, isn't it? You're the national coach and one of the clubs. I know a lot of these players play in the Georgian team. He gets sacked when they lost, heavily to Connacht at the weekend.
But you can only beat the team in front of you.
Yeah, and look, it's I think it's a confidence booster for them to play some rugby and attractive rugby because they've had a tricky start to the season, Connacht. Some kind of frustrating, difficult moments. The Cardiff game, the Bulls game. The last day out in the URC, really good win at home against the Sharks, and you can see kind of some elements of what Stuart Lancaster's trying to do, and but it takes time, and they go to the Dragons at the weekend, which again it's kind of a similar scenario for Munster. Rodney Parade will be rocking.
They beat Leon actually on Sunday, so
yeah,
they did.
They'll sense an opportunity there, and they'll throw everything at that. So you've got to deal with the crowd over in Wales who've been on going through a very, very difficult last number of years with the regions. With Scarlets are bottom of the table, Ospreys down in 13th. Cardiff flying it. They've won 5 games. To be fair, they've been very good. So that'll be a tricky one for Connacht as well. And it's one of those ones where you need to bring a little bit of steel and kind of front up and deal with the kind of atmosphere and try and deal with let it motivate you to get a performance. And again, there's league points at stake here, and for Connacht, they've lost 3 games here, so you don't want to be having another loss in your belt. And they've got to go for this over in the Dragons at the weekend, which will be tricky, by the way.
A final one on Europe. I don't want to be too negative on it because we all know what's happened since years back when we got rid of a weekend and it's not back-to-back fixtures. But Bristol, Hammer, Poe, Northampton batter the Bulls, Harlequins 60 points over Bayonne and Castres. Dispatch of Edinburgh 33-0. Teams can compete in both fronts, and you only have to win a certain amount of games to get into the last 16. How do we change it, or are those days gone on and we just have to accept it?
just Europe is such. It's obviously when I played in it for so long,
Meant
it's
so
just
much.
special. It meant everything, and it's tricky. I think there is teams in the league now, aside from the Irish, who will. Maybe obviously Richie Murphy makes changes the weekend that in the Challenge Cup. It was nearly enough to get him a result. It was, but you need a lot of depth to compete in both fronts, and we're seeing a lot of that. The Gloucester team sent to Cork. It used to be 9 weekends. It's now 8 weekends. Mightn't be the worst idea to reduce it to 7, and reduce get rid of the round 16 and just have 8 teams come out of the pools and go straight into a quarter final. Use that as European qualification. The 8 that come out are straight into Europe, and that the other teams within the leagues are scrambling for a couple of positions there to get into Europe, because it is difficult for teams to go on both fronts, and there's probably only 4 or 5 teams within the competition who probably can make that 7 or 8 changes scenario and have a lot of quality and on the team all the time, and it's difficult. So I'm sure, look, it's a talking point, and lots of people are disappointed. We're hearing players talking about it now, that they'd rather play full strength teams. Thomas Ramos last week, Jack Conan was talking about it as well. But what does George Skivington do really when he has a number of injuries and he has, fighting to try and win league matches in the next period of time, and player welfare and resting players and all that kind of stuff? We're probably seeing so much now of teams every week being changed dramatically. There was a time even recently that you'd see 4 or 5 weeks of roughly the same team, and maybe there needs to be a bit more pressure put on the coaches and teams who are playing in this competition.
Before we get into your Christmas list, which you don't know about, which makes it even better, Irish provinces battle each other throughout the next couple of weeks. In the new year, Andy Farrell pick a squad probably actually in about a month's time. It's such a big rivalry, and there's so many subplots across the board.
Yeah, there is, and traditionally the derbies kind of create opportunities for guys to grab the attentions of the Irish selectors. So there's a number of young players who've been on the periphery of Irish squads, and some of them could really put their hand up and accelerate their case for inclusion in that Irish squad. And I think he'd love to have guys here coming off form in these Christmas fixtures and European games, and have a chance to go, well, these guys are forcing my hand here to get him into a squad and put pressure on. There's probably too many to start mentioning names, but there's guys on the fringes there who have a lot to play for. Obviously, you want to try and get the bragging rights of winning derby fixtures and stuff like that, because players know each other so well, and it is an intriguing time of the year to have that intensity. Ulster, Leinster, Ulster tomorrow night is a big one. I think back to 23-24 when Ulster won both fixtures. They won both of them, and they caused Leinster problems that year by winning that game up in Belfast.
And the one in Dublin. Billy Burns kicking left, right and centre.
But it sends Leinster to away to South Africa for a semi-final then as well, So, they've caused Leinster problems a few times, and there is a great... and Leinster probably the province that can rotate half the team and manoeuvre their way through this a little bit easier. So I think you'd be very mindful, Leo Cullen. The teams will be out shortly if they're not out already, and I think it'll be a strong Leinster team. They want to try and get a good result. They've lost 3 games in the league, and they want to get themselves back up the table. So it's a great thing. Obviously the standout fixtures that Munster-Leinster won on the 27th, particularly now even more so that Leinster won that game back in October in Croke Park. Leinster will be gunning to try and make sure that they don't lose twice to Munster. So there's a lot of big games. Munster go up to Ulster after Christmas as well. So tough fixtures, intriguing fixtures. There's loads of little subplots, as you said, guys playing for Irish selection, but trying to get one over on on your rivals within your country, and we see the South African derbies, Welsh derbies as well, the Scottish one as well. So it brings a different kind of intensity, and people enjoy watching them.
Let's hope we see Crowley against Prendergast or Byrne this year, not like last year. Fans pay good money.
Yeah.
They want to see the best players on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw it in October, and there's a little subplot, isn't it? It's probably the biggest subplot of if the two of them go out against each other again. Crowley's one up on that one in October, and I know the Irish selection then chopped and changed during November. But yeah, that's the kind of rivalry you want as well within in the individuals.
Right on. Here is your Christmas list for on the
be good.
2026. Don't put your head down. They're exciting questions, Al.
Right.
Spent all year making
Short
these
answers,
up.
So
Yeah, well, we'll see. Will Ireland beat one of France or England away in 2026?
wow, that's tough now. Given where we're at, I think it's a tall order. But I'll try and be positive and say yes, they'll win one of them.
And you're not allowed to sit in the fence, so you haven't. Good man. Who will start at 10 against France?
Crowley.
Will Munster make the last four of Europe?
I don't think so, because I think it'd be too difficult to go and win in Toulon this time. I think they'll beat Cast at home, so 10 or 11 points will probably... It might get them home around 16, but it doesn't do you any favours for quarterfinals or semi-finals. So being away from home, of course they have the ability, and Europe is just such a special place, but now I'll say no.
Will Leinster win this year's Champions Cup next year's?
A little bit less pressure on them, I would say, given the way the season has started. Well, there's always pressure given they've lost a number of finals in the last few years. I remember the finals I lost, and they don't go away. You remember the ones you win, of course, but you do remember the days where you lost finals and what could have been. As of now, I'd say no, but they definitely have a chance and will be in the mix.
But heartbreak says you.
Yeah, they might be a little bit different, a little bit less expectation, I think. But they'll be in the mix. They'll be very close, and that's not to say that they're not capable of it. But if you ask me now, I'd probably say Toulouse have the strongest squad.
Who's more likely to win the Challenge Cup or go further between Ulster or Connacht?
I think the way Ulster have started the season would indicate that they're in a very, very strong position, and Connacht could have been sitting pretty really if they'd won in the Ospreys, which at 21-0 you're thinking they're going to win this game. I think they're away in Montpellier the next one, aren't they? And then home to Montauban. So I think they'll get two more wins. No, one more win, definitely. Depends what Montpellier put out. But someone like Montpellier in the Challenge Cup could, if they decide that they want to win it, it'd be very difficult with the depth in their squads. So I would say Ulster, if you asked me to pick. Ulster have a chance if they get a bit of luck with the injuries.
There's always a chance, thank goodness. What Irish player is going to surprise us in 2026?
Wow, that's one you need a little bit of time to think about. What Irish player is going to surprise, or what Irish player... I'd love to say what Irish player...
You can answer it whatever way you want it.
Well, I'd love to see Thomas Ahern grab a hold of this situation and go up to an Irish squad and say, I'm going to exert a bit of dominance here and just really excel. I said this probably 4 or 5 years ago, that this guy had the potential not just to play for Ireland, but to go on and play for British and Irish Lions, which is a very big statement. He's been very unlucky with some injuries. I think he's great ability. I would love to see him kind of kick on to the next level. So that's one I would like to see. I think there's a couple of others who I would love to see do well as well. Shane Bolton is one. I'd love to see Kieran Frawley get back. and be in the mix and put a bit of pressure. The question was who will or who would I like?
Who's going to surprise us? That's all it was.
Surprise us.
Tom Ahern is what you're saying.
It's more out of hope. I wouldn't, I think he needs to just get consistency. Shane Bolton might surprise a few. I think he could really get in the mix.
Question number 7. Probably need time, but you're not getting any time. Six Nations player of the tournament. It's great to see you so quiet, Al. Rich from me.
I'd love to say, I think DuPont, obviously with France will do well. I think England will probably be the favourites for the Six Nations, so I would say Tom Curry.
What law change would you like to see in rugby next year?
Speed up the breakdown. I spoke about it, just find a way to get it, to speed it up. I think the 5 seconds is too long.
I've just picked a couple here, so anyone listening, there's no preference out of this. Out of Brian Gleeson, Jude Postlethwaite, Edwin Adogwu, who will most likely feature for Ireland next year? If at all.
Geez, they're tough questions. I could say all three. I think Postlethwaite has a real talent, and it's an area again where we need a little bit more depth and need someone putting their hands up. So I'd say all three could easily put their hand up. That's probably not exactly what you want, the answer you want, but I think all three could put their hands up.
Okay, and finally, you'll be happy and relieved. What rugby present does Alan Quinlan want from Santa this year?
What rugby present? Oh, jeez. So getting something at Christmas? Well, I don't know.
Or for next year?
Or for next year. I'd love to see Ireland get back on track in playing some brilliant rugby and having a real crack at the Six Nations and see some exciting young players coming through, because 2027 is not that far away, and I think there is a little bit of negativity, a little bit unfair around the team and stuff like that. So, as I said, Andy Farrell, I'd love to see a bunch of young players coming through. So I'd love to see Ireland get back on track, and Munster maybe to win something as well.
With the Ireland stuff, is that more hope, or can you see expectation?
No, I think. Look, I think there's. I'm just intrigued to see how they approach the way they play, and I think they changed the way they played. It's not suiting us. I'd love to see some of the performances and the continuity and the attack mindedness that we had in the build up to the World Cup and in 2022. It's not easy just to go back, but I just think Ireland's attack could do with a little bit of a surge and an invigoration, and just to be brave and kind of go after matches and play with a bit more flair. That would be exciting to see. But yeah, look, obviously I'd love to see them get back on track, and some young players to come through as well, and give Andy Farrell a few headaches.
Well, let's hope for that. Did you enjoy your Christmas quiz or test?
I did, but I'm not really sure what I'd say. One for Christmas rugby thing. That was the one at the end, yeah. But anyway, I don't wear rugby jerseys or rugby stuff.
You do. You walk around the house in that 6 and 8 jersey from Munster.
No.
Alan, thanks so much for the year.
Cheers,
It's been
thanks,
brilliant. Everyone listening and watching online, we very much appreciate your comments and your support. We'll be back in January to look ahead to the Six Nations.